to doodle with poetry since I was very young. I was inspired by Amrita Pritam. Thank you.
Thank you, Kohinoor. Our second reader for the evening is Reena Kapoor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reena Kapoor. I live here in Silicon Valley and work in tech. My passion, however, lies in theater and writing. I was introduced to Amrita Pritam in college, but since I cannot read Punjabi, I have only truly accessed her work with the translations and transliterations that Anurag has created. I hope you'll enjoy this evening as we journey through these poems and translations.
Thank you, Reena. And our third reader for the evening is Anureet Kaur.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anureet Kaur. I live in LA, California. I'm a professor and a scientist by profession. I was born and raised in Punjab and is very close to Punjabi folk music, dance, and poetry. I love to sing as a hobby. I used to recite poetry as a kid in school. Well, I'm glad you are here, and I really hope you will enjoy this evening as we pay tribute to this legendary writer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, readers, and we look forward to your beautiful poetry recitation this evening. I would now like to hand it off to Anurag Vadera to begin the event, but first would like to introduce him to all of you. It's difficult to describe Anurag in just a few words, but this event is based on his translations of Amrita Pritam's poems that he has been working on and writing in his online blog for nearly 10 years. Anurag grew up in a Punjabi household in Delhi, while both of his parents were born in present-day Pakistan and moved with their families to India during the partition. Anurag came to the US for his graduate studies and has been a tech marketer in the Silicon Valley for nearly 20 years. His other creative ventures include play and screenwriting, and he has also directed and produced an acclaimed documentary. Without any further ado, I will ask Anurag to come on screen and begin the event.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Anurag, and as Hassan mentioned, I have been working on translating Amrita Pritam's poetry from Punjabi into English and Hindi for more than 10 years in my blog, Kissing Fire. Today, I share these translations with you with a lot of trepidation. That's because I think that listening to her poems in original Punjabi is like tasting the nectar or Amrit itself. And these translations can never capture that taste. And at best, they can give you the fragrance of the poems. So please consider the English and Hindi translations you hear today as the scent of Amrita Pritam's poetry, not the real thing. In defense of my translations, I'm going to use a quote from Amrita Pritam herself. Maan sache ishq da hai, hunar da dawa nahi. I take pride in my love, but I make no claim of my talent. With that caveat, we shall begin. Sham ki ibtida karte hain. It was the year 1982 when I met Amrita Pritam. I was studying at IIT and I ran a student club that invited famous speakers to campus to give lectures on modern topics from literary to political. Amrita Pritam had just won the Gyanpith Award, and I discovered that she lived virtually next door to our campus in Haus Khas in Delhi. So I thought she would be an ideal speaker for our club. I made an appointment with her on the phone and went to her place to invite her. I remember her house in Haus Khas. It was a modest place that had beautiful paintings and delicate Punjabi calligraphy everywhere. Amrita invited me in. I noticed that she was an elegant lady in her 60s with graying hair. Very respectfully, I extended my invitation to come speak at IIT campus about her poems and her recent award. So you can imagine my surprise when she turned me down. Instead, she asked me, "Have you read my work?" I sheepishly answered that I had not, since I didn't read Punjabi script back then. Amrita said, "I don't like to discuss my work. All I have to say is in my work. Please read it. I was taken aback. Who was this famous author who did not want to promote her work, especially in front of an eager and young audience? There was something about that first meeting, wo pehli mulaqat, which motivated me to not only learn how to read Punjabi, but also to learn more about her, the poet. We will now listen to a few of my favorite short poems, Tera Khayal, Chetar, and Rabji. The three readers will join us on the screen now.
तेरा ख्याल आ रहा है, दूर फलक पर गगन धरती को गले लगा रहा है. तेरा ख्याल आ रहा है, तेरा ख्याल आ रहा है.
ਸਾਡਾ ਵਨਜ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡਾ ਵਨਜ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ. ਕੱਲ ਹਸਤੀ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ, ਉਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਚੁਟਕੀ ਮੰਗਣ ਆਈ ਵੇ. ਬਿਰਹਾ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਖਰਲ ਬਲੌਰੀ, ਬਿਰਹਾ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਖਰਲ ਬਲੌਰੀ, ਜਿੰਦੜੀ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਰਮਾ ਪੀਠਾ. ਰੋਜ਼ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਬਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਮੰਗਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਲਾਈ ਵੇ. ਦੋ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਅੰਦਰ, ਦੋ ਅੱਖੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਅੰਦਰ, ਕੱਲ ਅਸਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਘੋਲੇ. ਇਹ ਧਰਤੀ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੇੜੇ ਚੁੰਨੀ ਰੰਗਣ ਆਈ ਵੇ. ਇਹ ਧਰਤੀ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੇੜੇ ਚੁੰਨੀ ਰੰਗਣ ਆਈ ਵੇ.
ये व्यापार मुबारक हमको, ये व्यापार मुबारक हमको. कल हंसती थी जो दुनिया, वही दुनिया आज हमसे चुटकी मांगने आई है. बिरहा की एक ओखल मूसल, जिंदगी का मैंने सुरमा पीसा. बिरहा की एक ओखल मूसल, जिंदगी का मैंने सुरमा पीसा. रोज रात को अंबर आके मांगता एक सिलाई है. दो आंखों के पानी अंदर, कल हमने कुछ सपने घोले. दो आंखों के पानी अंदर, कल हमने कुछ सपने घोले. ये धरती आज मेरे आंगन चुन्नी रंगने आई है. ये धरती आज मेरे आंगन चुन्नी रंगने आई है.
ਸਾਡੀ ਅੱਗ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੀ ਅੱਗ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ. ਸੂਰਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੂਹੇ ਆਇਆ, ਉਸਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਕੋਲਾ ਮੰਗ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਅੱਗ ਸੁਲਗਾਈ ਵੇ. ਉਸਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਕੋਲਾ ਮੰਗ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਅੱਗ ਸੁਲਗਾਈ ਵੇ.
Blessed today is the flame of my soul, for the sun itself knocked on my door. The sun itself knocked on my door and borrowed a coal to light his fire.
Rabji by Amrita Pritam. ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ. ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ. ਤੇ ਚੋਲੀ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਪਾੜ ਕੇ ਕੰਨੀ ਰੁੱਖ ਦੀ ਢਾਣੀ ਬੰਨੀ. ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਲਹੂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਟੇਪਾ, ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖਰ ਘੜਿਆ. ਤੇ ਉਹੀਓ ਮੇਰਾ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖਰ ਜਗ ਦੀ ਸੂਲੀ ਚੜਿਆ. ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਜਨਮ ਦੀ ਲਾਜ ਬਚਾਹੀ, ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਜਨਮ ਦੀ ਲਾਜ ਬਚਾਹੀ. ਅੱਖ ਕਦੇ ਨਾ ਰੁੰਨੀ. ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ. ਆਵੋ ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਰੁੱਖ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਟਾਕੀ ਖੋਲਣ ਆਵੋ. ਤੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਅਖੀਰੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਆਪਣੀ ਝੋਲੀ ਪਾਵੋ. ਇਸ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੁਸਾਂ ਜੋ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ, ਉਹੀਓ ਮੰਨਤ ਪੁੰਨੀ. ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ। ਰੱਬ ਜੀ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਰੁੱਖ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਮੰਨਤ ਮੰਨੀ।
Once you came to my tree to make a wish. You tore a ribbon from your bodice and tied it to a twig. I took every drop of my blood and wrote words with it. But every word I wrote, the world nailed it to a crucifix. Yet I kept the dignity of my life, never shedding a single tear from my eyes. You, come back to my tree, untie this knot, set the ribbon free, and rest in your lap my last word. See, that wish you made of me, I fulfilled. Once you came to my tree to make a wish.
Rabaji is a rare gem of a poem. There is a tradition in South Asia of Mannat Mangna, where people tie threads or pieces of cloth to trees at a dargah or a mandir. They make a wish to the gods, and once their wish is fulfilled, they return to untie the threads. Here, Amrita reverses the metaphor. The god has tied a thread around her and made a wish of her to write. And all her life, she writes and writes without regret, even when she's persecuted for her words. And in the end, she asks her God to come release her, for she has fulfilled his wish. What a gorgeous poem. I spent the summer after my first year in college learning Punjabi and reading Amrita Pritam. I learned that she was born in 1919 in Punjab of undivided India. Her birthplace was near Gujranwala, now in Pakistan. She was born in a spiritual Sikh household. Her father was a scholar and a poet, and her mother was a teacher. I still remember the very first poem of hers I read in Punjabi. Fer tenu yaad kita. Fer tenu yaad kita, agnu chumea sa. Fer tenu yaad kita, agnu chumea sa. Ishq pyala zahar da, ik ghut fir mangaya sa. Again, I thought of you and kissed the fire. Again, I thought of you and kissed the fire. Again, I begged a sip from the poison cup of desire. The power of her words made me curious to know more about who she was as a person. I learned that she was a woman of letters, a literary figure larger than life. She wrote over 100 books of poems, novels, essays that were translated in over 7 languages. She won the highest awards of the country, the Sahitya Academy Award in 1955 and Bharatiya Gyanpith Award in 82. Some of you may be familiar that one of her novels, Pinjar, was made into a Hindi movie in 2003. Upon discovering Amrita Pritam, I felt like I had found a lost homeland, a disappearing culture. Khoya hua vatan, khoi hui sanskriti, khoi hui sakafat. She used everyday images from nature and culture, dhoop, chhao, mela, to say something profound. Here is an example. Ik tota tupda.
मुझे वो वक्त याद है जब एक टुकड़ा धूप का सूरज की उंगली पकड़ के अंधेरे का मेला देखता, भीड़ों में हुआ गुमशुदा। सोचती हूं कि सहम और एकांत का भी साथ होता है। मैं जो इसकी कुछ नहीं, पर इस गुमशुदा बच्चे ने मेरा हाथ पकड़ लिया। तू कहीं मिलता नहीं, लेकिन हाथ को छूती एक नन्ही गरम सांस। ना मेरे हाथ से संभलती, ना कुछ हाथ से खाती। अंधेरा कहीं ढलता नहीं, मेले के शोर में भी है एक आलम चुप का। और याद तेरी इस तरह जैसे एक टुकड़ा धूप का।
एक टुकड़ा धूप का, वाह क्या पोएम है, कैसे तराशा है. Amrita uses three different images to create meaning. First is that of a patch of light separated from the sun, with the feelings of warmth and cold. Second is that of a child lost in the crowd, feeling alone and scared. And the third image is that of an adult helping the child in the search. In the final stanza, the poem's meaning becomes clear. Like a lost child searches for the parent, the poet is searching for her lover. And the light, dhoop, is a memory of the lover. And she finds comfort in this memory. मेले दे रौले विच भी है एक आलम चुपदा ते याद तेरी इस तरह जियों एक टोटा तुपदा. Amrita Pritam had an interesting personal life. She was an independent woman. She moved from Lahore to Delhi after partition and worked at All India Radio. She was married off at the young age of 16 and had 2 kids. Even though she was married for 25 years, it appeared to be an unhappy marriage. After Amrita left her husband, she never wrote about her marriage or about him. On the other hand, her autobiography, Rasidi Ticket, she wrote openly about her love for Sahir Ludhianvi, who was a famous Muslim poet and a successful lyricist in the Indian film industry. For a variety of reasons, Sahir did not commit to the relationship. Although Amrita Pritam was married to another man at the time, she wrote a great deal about her unrequited love for Sahir Ludhianvi. Once, she wrote in Hindi about him. तुम्हारे दरख्त की टहनी का जो आसरा मिला, तुम्हारे दरख्त की टहनी का जो आसरा मिला, मेरे टूटे हुए दिल का परिंदा वहीं रुक गया. She was severely criticized in literary circles for declaring her love for Sahir while being a married woman. But Amrita never responded to such criticisms or comments. Instead, some of her most beautiful poems and writing came from her love for Sahir. She believed that the truth was not in what people said about her personal life. The truth was in her work. Let's hear one such beautiful poem that she wrote for Sahir Ludhianvi. Ek Mulakat.
मैं चुप शांत ते अडोल खड़ी सां. मैं चुप शांत ते अडोल खड़ी सां. सिर्फ कोल वगदे समुंदर दे विच तूफान सी. फिर समुंदर नूं रब जाने की ख्याल आया. उस अपने तूफान दी एक पोटली बन्नी, मेरे हत्थां च फड़ाई ते हस के कुछ परां हो गया. हैरान सां पर उसदा चमत्कार फड़ लिया. पता सी कि जेही घटना कदे सदियां च हुंदी है. लखां ख्याल आए, मत्थे ते झिलमिल आए, पर खलोती रह गई कि इसनूं चुक के अज अपने शहर विच मैं किवें जावांगी. मेरे शहर दी हर गली पीड़ी है. मेरे शहर दी हर छत नीवी है. मेरे शहर दी हर कंध चुगली है.
मैं चुप, शांत और स्थिर खड़ी थी। सिर्फ पास बहते समंदर में तूफान था। फिर समंदर को रब जाने क्या ख्याल आया। उसने अपने तूफान की एक पोटली बांधी, मेरे हाथ में पकड़ाई और हंस के दूर खड़ा हो गया। हैरान थी, पर उसका चमत्कार पकड़ लिया। पता था कि ऐसी घटना कभी सदियों में होती है। लाखों ख्याल आए, माथे पर झिल मिलाए, पर खड़ी रह गई कि इसको उठाकर आज अपने शहर में मैं कैसे जाऊंगी। मेरे शहर की हर गली तंग है, मेरे शहर की हर छत नीची है, मेरे शहर की हर आड़ चुगली है। मैंने सोचा अगर तू कहीं मिले तो समंदर की तरह इसे छाती पे रखकर हम दो किनारों की तरह हंस सकते थे और नीची छतों और तंग गलियों की शहर में बस सकते थे। पर सारी दोपहर तुझे ढूंढते बीती, पर सारी दोपहर तुझे ढूंढते बीती और अपनी आग का मैंने खुद ही घूंट पिया। मैं एक अकेला किनारे को छोड़ दिया और दिन उतरते समय समंदर का तूफान समंदर को लौटा दिया। अब रात पड़ने को है तो तू मिला है, अब रात पड़ने को है तो तू मिला है। तू भी उदास, चुप, शांत और स्थिर। मैं भी उदास, चुप, शांत और स्थिर। सिर्फ दूर बहते समंदर में तूफान है।
एक मुलाकात. Wow, sad and beautiful. Amrita Pritam had to move from Lahore to Delhi after partition. But she always considered her home, Watan, to be the undivided Punjab. Towards the end of her life, when she was given an award by Pakistan's Punjabi Academy, she remarked, "बड़े दिनों बाद मेरे मैके को मेरी याद आई." My motherland has remembered me after a long time. We now move to her most famous work, Akha Varishanu. If she had not written a single word except this poem, she would still be immortalized in Punjabi literature. The poem was written in 1947 during the darkest period of the partition. This poem is addressed to Varis Shah. He was an 18th century Sufi poet who wrote the famous poem Heer Ranjha. Amrita Pritam was born in the same place as Varis Shah in Punjab and considered herself to be an heir, Varis, to Varis Shah. Let's listen to the first few lines of the poem, Akha Varis Shah.
ਅੱਜ ਆਖਾਂ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੋਲ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕਿਤਾਬੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਅਗਲਾ ਵਰਕਾ ਫੂਲ। ਅੱਜ ਆਖਾਂ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੋਲ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕਿਤਾਬੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਅਗਲਾ ਵਰਕਾ ਫੂਲ। ਇੱਕ ਰੋਈ ਸੀ ਧੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਤੂੰ ਲਿਖ ਲਿਖ ਮਾਰੇ ਵੈਣ। ਅੱਜ ਲੱਖਾਂ ਧੀਆਂ ਰੋਂਦੀਆਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣ। ਵੇ ਦਰਦਮੰਦਾਂ ਦਿਆ ਦਰਦੀਆ ਉੱਠ ਤੱਕ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ। ਅੱਜ ਬੇਲੇ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਵਿਛੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਲਹੂ ਦੀ ਭਰੀ ਚਨਾਬ। ਅੱਜ ਸਭੇ ਕੈਦੋ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਹੁਸਨ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਚੋਰ ਅੱਜ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲਿਆਈਏ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਅੱਜ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲਿਆਈਏ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ
Today I call Waris Shah. Speak from inside your grave and turn today the book of love's next page. Once Heer, a daughter of Punjab, cried. For her you wrote a wailing saga. Today, 1,000,000 daughters cry to you, Waris Shah. Rise, O narrator of the grieving. Rise, look at your Punjab. Today, fields are lined with corpses, and blood fills the river Chenab. Today, everyone is Heer's nemesis, thieves of beauty and ardor. Where can we find today another Waris Shah once more? Where can we find today another Waris Shah once more?
In the poem we just heard, Akha Varishanu, it is important to note what is absent. She does not call out any one religion or community as the perpetrator. Instead, she calls upon her spiritual mentor, Varisha, to respond to the plight of the thousands of daughters of Punjab, thereby directly appealing to the humanity of the people, the humanity within us all. So deep was Amrita Pritam's admiration for Varisha that when Punjabi poets of Pakistan sent her a chadar, a shawl, from the tombs of Varisha and Bulle Shah, she was greatly moved and cherished the gift all her life. She joked that people criticized her for not addressing her Varisha poem to either Lenin or Guru Nanak. People of her own Sikh community expected her to pay tribute through the poem to Guru Nanak, while progressive leftist writers expected her to be the follower of Lenin. But Amrita Pritam could not be boxed in by the politics of her time. Amrita's political views were complicated. She was a member of the progressive writers' movement, but she was not a revolutionary in political terms. Even her most political poems are written from the lens of personal oppression rather than from the frame of social justice. Here is an example. During the partition, it is estimated that over 100,000 women were abducted and raped over both sides of the border. She wrote one of her most political and personal poem, Majboor, to address this issue through the innocent voice of a child born of rape. Let's hear it.
ਮਜਬੂਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੁੱਖ ਮਜਬੂਰ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਹਾਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਟੱਕਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਸੱਟ ਦਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਹਾਂ ਉਸ ਹਾਦਸੇ ਦਾ ਚਿੰਨ੍ਹ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਮਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਦੇ ਮੱਥੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੁੱਖ ਮਜਬੂਰ ਸੀ
लानत हूं मैं वो जो इंसान पर पड़ रही पैदाइश हूं उस वक्त की जब टूट रहे थे तारे जब बुझ गया था सूरज और चांद की आंख भी में बेनूर थी मेरी मां की कोख मजबूर थी
मैं खरींद हां एक जख्म दा मैं धब्बा हां मां दे जिस्म दा मैं जुल्म हां ओ बोझ हां जो मां मेरी ढोंदी रही ਮਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੇਟ ਚੋਂ ਸੜਿਆਉਂਦ ਇੱਕ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਰਹੀ।
कौन जान सकता है कितना मुश्किल है इंसान के जुल्म को पेट में पालना, अंग अंग झुलसना और हड्डियों को पिघलाना।
फल हाँ उस वक्त दा मैं, फल हाँ उस वक्त दा मैं, आजादी दियां बेरियां नू पह रिया जद बूर सी। मेरी मां दी कुख मजबूर सी, मेरी मां दी कुख मजबूर सी।
मेरी मां की कोख मजबूर थी, मेरी मां की कोख मजबूर थी।
Forced, 1947. When my mother's womb was forced, I came as a child must. I am the mark of our fight for independence. I'm the scar of a wound left on her brow when my mother's womb was forced. I'm the shame of mankind, born at a time when the sun and moon hid their light and stars fell dead in the night. When my mother's womb was forced, I am the scab in her womb. I'm the scab in her womb she had to nurse by burning her bones. She smelt its stench in the wind. She smelt its stench in the wind when my mother's womb was forced. I'm the fruit that ripened on the tree of independence. I'm the fruit that ripened on the tree of independence when my mother's womb was forced.
Majboor is a bone-chilling poem, in some ways more powerful than Akhan Warishan. Once, the famous writer Khushwant Singh, who was a close friend of Amrita's, told her, "Your life has so few incidents that your life story can be written on the back of a revenue stamp." That prompted Amrita to title her autobiography Rasidi Ticket. Her life story may have been simple, but she had profound relationships. Without doubt, her longest and deepest relationship was with Imroz. Imroz was her lifelong partner who lived with her until her death. He moved in after Amrita had been divorced from her husband and after her relationship with Sahir Ludhianvi was over. Amrita's biographer, Uma Trilok, said this: "For Amrita, Sahir was the sky towards whom she gazed in admiration, whereas Imroz was the roof under which she rested and enjoyed solace." Imroz was a painter who illustrated all her books. In fact, I met Imroz during my first visit to Amrita's house during my college days. An easygoing, kind, and gentle man, he made us a cup of tea and joined us in conversation. His paintings were all around the house. I noticed a lamp in the room that he had hand-painted with a Punjabi poem on it. I wondered what that poem said. Many years later, I discovered the poem on the lamp. Roshni. रल गई सी इस विच एक बूंद तेरे इश्क दी, रल गई सी इस विच एक बूंद तेरे इश्क दी, इस लई मैं उमर दी सारी कुड़ितन पी लई। For a drop of your love had dissolved in it. For a drop of your love had dissolved in it. That's how I could drink the bitters of life. Even today, people remain interested in her personal story. I think the reason for this is because her poems were a direct response to her relationships. And they are so personal and spiritual that each of us sees something universal in them. Here is a poem Amrita wrote for Imrose, her lifelong partner. By the way, he is still alive in his 90s. This is from her last book, Main Tainu Fir Milangi. Notice how she addresses him as a painter in this poem.
मैं तैनू फेर मिलांगी, मैं तैनू फेर मिलांगी, किथे किस तरह पता नहीं, शायद तेरे तखय्युल दा चिनक बन के तेरे कैनवस ते उतरांगी, जां खौरे तेरी कैनवस दे उत्ते एक रहस्यमयी लकीर बन के खामोश तैनू तकदी रवांगी, जां खौरे सूरज दी लौ बन के तेरे रंगां विच घुलांगी, जां रंगां दियां बावां विच बह के तेरी कैनवस नू वलांगी, पता नहीं किस तरह किथे पर तैनू जरूर मिलांगी। ये जिस्म मुकदा है तां सब कुछ मुक जांदा, पर चेत्यां दे धागे कायनाती कना दे हुंदे। मैं उन्हां कना नू चुनांगी, धाग्यां नू वलांगी, ते तैनू मैं फेर मिलांगी, मैं तैनू फेर मिलांगी।
मैं तुझे फिर मिलूंगी, कहाँ कैसे पता नहीं, शायद तेरी कल्पना की चिंगारी बनके तेरे कैनवस पर उतरूंगी, या शायद तेरे कैनवस पर एक रहस्यमयी लकीर बनके खामोश तुझे ताकती रहूंगी, या शायद सूरज की लौ बनके तेरे रंगों में घुलूंगी, या रंगों की बाहों में बैठकर तेरे कैनवस में लौट जाऊंगी। पता नहीं कैसे, कहाँ, पर तुझे जरूर मिलूंगी, या शायद एक चश्मा बनी होंगी और जैसे झरनों का पानी उड़ता है, मैं पानी की बूंदें तेरे बदन पर मलूंगी और एक ठंडक सी बनके तेरी छाती से लगूंगी। मैं और कुछ नहीं जानती, पर इतना जानती हूं, मैं और कुछ नहीं जानती, पर इतना जानती हूं कि वक्त जो भी करेगा ये जन्म मेरे साथ चलेगा। एक जिस्म खत्म होता है तो सब कुछ खत्म हो जाता है, पर चेतनाओं के धागे कायनाती कणों से होते हैं। मैं उन कणों को चुनूंगी, धागों को लपेटूंगी और तुझे मैं फिर मिलूंगी।
मैं तैनू फिर मिलांगी has now become the most popular poem of Amrita Pritam. Before we bring the evening to close, let's hear an autobiographical poem by Amrita. She wrote many such poems, but this poem we are about to hear, Mera Pata, is my personal favorite. You are in for a treat. I got a friend to record this poem directly from Amrita in her own voice when he went to visit her house in Delhi in late 90s. First, we will hear Mera Pata in Hindi, and then in Amrita's own voice in Punjabi.
आज मैंने अपने घर का नंबर मिटाया है और गली के माथे पे लिखा गली का नाम हटाया है और हर सड़क की दिशा का नाम पोंछ दिया है। पर अगर तुम्हें मुझे ढूंढना ही है तो हर देश के हर शहर की हर गली का दरवाजा खटखटाओ। यह एक श्राप, एक वर है। जहां भी तुम्हें किसी स्वतंत्र रूह की झलक मिले, समझना वही मेरा घर है।
Now, let's hear the personal recording of the same poem in Amrita's own voice that my friend recorded when he visited her house.
ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਨੰਬਰ ਮਿਟਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਗਲੀ ਦੇ ਮੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਲੱਗਾ ਗਲੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹਟਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਹਰ ਸੜਕ ਦੀ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਪੂੰਝ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਹਰ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਹਰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਹਰ ਗਲੀ ਦਾ ਬੂਹਾ ਠਕੋਰੋ। ये एक श्राप है, एक वर है ते जिथे भी स्वतंत्र रूह दी झलक पवे, समझना वो मेरा घर है।
Wah, wah. Many years later, while visiting from the US, I went to meet Amrita again. She autographed all her Punjabi books that I had brought with me. This recording you heard and her signed books are the gifts I still cherish today. Amrita belonged to an undivided community of people in Punjab that lived together for centuries. And she spoke of an undivided culture and a Sufi tradition that transcended the religious, the linguistic, and the political divisions we have among us today. My sincere hope is that by discovering Amrita Pritam and her poetry, we can all discover a shared history and a shared set of values that may unite us again, despite the partitions we have around us. Thank you for joining us in this Baitak tonight.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this Betak as much as I did. We are now going to start our discussion section in just a couple of minutes. But before that, I would like to ask Anurag and all the readers to come on screen. Anurag has a few words that he would like to say to all of you.
Thank you. Such an event cannot be put together without help of many people. I would like to acknowledge that. Thank you so much to Hassan for directing and Cloud Playhouse for producing this event. Thank you to the narrators, Anureet, Kohinoor, and Reena. And thank you to Ajit Singh Ji, who helped me understand many of the tough Punjabi expressions. He's a master translator and a poet himself, based in Washington, DC. Thank you to Vijay Rajan of Enact Arts and his Storytellers Workshop, whose members provided feedback to many poems. Thank you to Rajiv Nanda, who introduced me to Amrita's Punjabi books. For more on Amrita translations, please check out my blog, Kissing Fire, Poetry of Amrita Pritam, and the audio playlists by the same name on SoundCloud. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Everybody, the chat window is now open for all of you to start writing in it and chat with everyone. I also would like everyone to unmute themselves. Please turn on your videos and your microphones so we can give Anurag and the readers a huge round of applause. Nice to see the familiar faces. am now going to mute everybody. Okay, so everyone is now on mute. If you have any questions or would like to ask Anurag anything or give any feedback, or even just talk about one or two poems that really connected with you, we would love to hear from you. So you have multiple options to interact with us. On the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see an icon that says participants. If you click on that icon, you have the option to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand using the participants view, I will call on you to ask a question, or you can even chat in the chat window and let us know that you would like to speak. As you're all thinking of your questions, I actually already have a few people who've raised their hands. So firstly, we have Atif Salim. Atif, if you can unmute your mic, please, and ask your question.
Hi, thank you, Hassan. That was so amazing and beautiful. And the way that Kohinoor and Reena and Anureet recited the poems was so meaningful. Like you could tell how you really felt the words. That was so beautiful to see. And it really needed like no explication further. I think the way that it was recited was so amazing and poignant. I really also liked how Anurag, you embellished the poems with the history and the background, and it made it so holistic and nice. And Hassan, you did such an amazing job of directing it. So I had a question, which is that it's actually really hard to find these translations of her poems online, especially for somebody like me who doesn't really understand the Punjabi and Urdu as well as the English. And so for me, I really need that to connect and tie the strings together. So I wanted to ask if can have access to these translations that were here today. And I think you mentioned that they are on the blog, but I also wanted to ask if if you can access other translations from her work in addition, and if there's a resource for that or a compendium.
Atif, thank you so much for your kind comments. Very quickly, this is a labor of love. I've been translating this for a long time. There are about 50 to 60 poems that I think I was able to translate that are available on the blog. You can find them by Googling under my name and the word Kissing Fire. Most likely you'll get that. And for those who don't read Hindi, Punjabi, or those languages, then there's an audio playlist of these I have created on SoundCloud, and you can find that again by searching for my name and the words Kissing Fire. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. Anurag, can you actually link us to your blog and the SoundCloud in the chat window so everyone can go in and...
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Thank you. Sounds good. Next, I have a comment from Anju saying that she would like to speak. She has to get going soon. So Anju, please unmute yourself and share what you would like to say or ask.
Hello all. Hope you can see me and hear me fine.
Yeah.
So First of all, I want to congratulate all the 4 readers. Anurag, I include you too. It was so amazing, so soulful. I didn't expect this to be the production that it was. I thought it would just be reading. I thought the flow was amazing. The way Anurag, brought everybody together. Kohinoor, Reena, and Anureet. Each of you brought your personality. I'm sure Amrita Pritam is looking down now and smiling on all of you. What a lovely way of bringing your own flavor into it. At one time, I thought I was seeing Brave Zara. I could imagine all the village women on their jhulas when wearing all their long dupattas and their parandas. It just took me to a different place. And I know there are 140 people who tuned in today, so I'm just going to rush, but I wanted to say thank you. You guys excelled, and all the resources that you must have referred to. I heard you talk about Vijay Rajan and all the other people that you must have consulted. Everything worked beautifully today, and thank you. Thank you for making this so lovely. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Anju. Thank you for joining us. Next, I see that Mr. Ajit Singh has raised his hand. So Mr. Ajit Singh, if you would like to unmute yourself and maybe even turn on your camera.
I hope I'm there. I'm not sure. I'm new to all these things.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Well, I had a privilege of working with Anurag while he was translating. Sincerely, translation is a very, very difficult art, especially when you are translating poetry. Come what may, we can never bring the flavor or the magic of the poem. I mean, all what we can do is what the poet felt and recorded for us. As it is actually very often, even I have to read 2 or 3 times a couplet either of Shiv Kumar or Amrita Pritam to really understand what he or she wants to say. There is so much hidden behind very simple words. Of course, Amrita is a tremendous poet, there's no doubt. I learned a lot while I was helping him in translating, and we used to actually chat mostly on the phone. But it's a wonderful thing that he has created. Someday, maybe somebody will actually create them in the form of either a video or a book and video both together, so that those of us or the new generation who can probably speak but cannot read the language will also be equally benefited. More so, at least at my age or in my thing, I have never been able to get all that a poet has to say in the first reading. I generally go over it a number of times before I get to the bottom of it. Anyway, thank you all of, and thank Anurag for now and then bringing me in this thing. I enjoyed working with him. All the best.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you. Mr. Ajit Singh Ji is being modest here. He is actually a master translator and has written translations of Shiv Kumar Batalvi and Mohan Singh, the two most famous and extremely difficult authors to translate from Punjabi. And his books are expected to be published very soon. So I'm very thankful for his mastery and his guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Ajit Singh, and thank you, Anurag.
Yes, thank you very much.
Next, we have Sarabdeep. Sarabdeep, if you can please unmute yourself and also your camera if you like.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that my daughter, she's 6 months old, was so fascinated by Amrita Pritam's that she didn't move, and only now she started getting a little restless. And I just want to thank everyone, all the readers, and the way it was recited, it was shared with all the commentary around. It was beautiful. So thanks again. And is there a way we could get how the recording, which was shared by Anurag for the poem which was recited by Amrita, that would be amazing as well. If there's any way, we would love that as well. So just wanted to say I'm starting her early on Amrita Pritam, so I hope that's a good thing. So thanks again.
Anurag, I'll let you answer that.
Yes, thank you so much. We will. I will upload my personal collection on the blog post so that you can enjoy it.
Sure. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Next, we have Sara Dawood, whose hand is raised. Sara, would you like to unmute yourself and your camera?
Yes. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this question is actually for Anureet. I thought your recitation was really powerful and extremely earnest, and I really connected with it. And I don't really speak Punjabi at all or understand it. And so I was extremely fascinated by how well you were able to portray everything. And I was just wondering if you've recited Punjabi poetry aloud before, and what experience you have with the recitation.
Sarah, thank you for the beautiful question. So, so as I mentioned, initially I was born in Punjabi is my mother tongue, and I used to recite poetry as a kid in school. But I've read Amrita Pritam's couplet when I was growing up here and there. But at that time, I could not understand the depth of words she has used in her poetry. I mean, it's remarkable. But a couple of years back, I was in Dallas. I used to host a Baisakhi Mela. It's a fest, and where people used to come. And me and my co-host used to open the stage with using some of her couplets, and we used to recite her poem and used to open the stage. And even in between our script, we used to use a lot. And that time, actually, I understood the essence of her poem. I really connected myself, and I started reading more about her. And yeah, so my passion actually got triggered a couple of years back. But yes, Punjabi I can read, understand from that. That's where I was born. So that's my language. Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Anureet. Next, we have Ranjita Chakravarty. Ranjita, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure, I'd like to unmute myself to applaud everybody. All four of you were amazing. I think personalizing the poems made it even more meaningful. Anurag's personal experiences, that made it very meaningful for me. And I wanted to thank you for exposing me to more Amrita Pritam poems. I have to admit, only I know a couple of her poems. Majboor is one that is very well known, and I had gotten to know it. And Main Fir Milangi, that was another favorite poem of mine, but I think I will go and read more of her poems. So thank you. I think one of the good things about these events is that you get exposed to stuff you may not have been exposed to before. And I really appreciated that. It was nice to see Kohinoor, who I've known as a singer. So maybe she can set some of this to music, which would be awesome. But I wanted to just say bravo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We next have Amber Rashid, whose hand is raised. Amber, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi everybody. I just want to say that the recitations were amazing. This is like a little embarrassing to admit, but the recitation of Majboor actually brought me to tears. It was really that amazing. And hearing Anurag's analysis and his like firsthand experiences with Amrita Pritam were just like an amazing treat, like made my Sunday. So thank you so much, you guys. I actually have a question for Reena. Reena, I heard you perform at the Ismat Chugtai event earlier this year. And I know she's also a writer from the Progressive Writers Movement. So I just would like to hear about what it's like learning about both these writers. How are they similar? What are the similar themes, or like maybe like contrasting the techniques that they use, and just your experience learning about both of them.
Thanks, Amber. Great question, and thank you for your kind comment. I really appreciate that. And that's a really, really great question, because they have many similarities in terms of the fact that they were both revolutionary women and very much ahead of their times, and wrote beautifully. They were both part of the Progressive Writers Movement, which was started in the early 30s in India, 1930s, almost 100 years ago. And so they were both part of it, but there are some very important differences, and I think Anurag alluded to some of these as he spoke and provided detail about what moved Amrita. I think the biggest difference is that Amrita was a romantic, and she stood for her own personal freedom, and she talked about the fact that she she fell in love with Sahir Ludhianvi. She was married to another man at the time. She really didn't care. Wasn't a happy marriage, but she sort of, wore her love on her sleeve, so to speak, and was quite unashamed of it. And she, there are strains of Amrita Pritam which remind me of another movement, which is called the Bhakti movement, which is the spirituality, merging with love of God. So, the whole idea that you reach God through love, and that worship, that form of worship, is really all about, and it's you find those strains in Sufism too, so to speak. So Amrita came from that tradition. She was very spiritual. She believed in God. She also believed in personal freedom and not suppressing her love, or and speaking up for herself, but also the underdog, specifically women. As we all know, or many of us know, partition brought with it a lot of violence and murder and rape and all of that. And the condition of women and what was done to women at the time was particularly horrendous, but it was also particularly hidden, because in those communities, the women's honor was a big deal. So even if violence was visited on the women and they were raped, you just kind of swept that under the rug and you just kept quiet about it. And Amrita Pritam had none of that. She, obviously with Majboor and her other poems, she brought that to the fore. So she was political in that sense, but it was again a very personal expression of her politics. On the contrary, Ismat Chugtai was much more openly political. She was a communist. She was definitely part of the progressive writers movement, but she also spoke about political issues as much as she spoke about social issues. So she spoke and wrote about, so you heard Genda, you were there, so that's a beautiful story. And I see Wajiha ji on the video as well, who is my Urdu teacher, and we're reading other beautiful progressive writers, and they are all, were political in a sense, but in different ways. And Ismat Chugtai wrote about lesbianism. She wrote about how in the, the rich in the feudal system were raping young girls and getting away with it. And, and so she spoke about social exploitation and political exploitation, and very much believed that communism, would be the answer. And as you heard, Amrita, on the other hand, just laughed when somebody said she should be paying homage to Lenin. So those were, I would say, the main differences. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but I hope that helps, Amber. Thank you.
No, thank you. That was a great response. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amber, and thank you, Reena. So we do have 3 more raised hands, but the next hand was actually mine. I promise I raised my hand and put it in the queue. So my question, it's actually less of a question, more of a request. It's for Kohinoor. Kohinoor, I remember when you and I were having one of our rehearsals and we were practicing the poem Chetar, you told me and you shared with me your understanding of the poem and what you thought of it. And that really, really connected with me. So I was wondering if you would be kind enough to share briefly just your understanding today with everyone as well.
That would be a privilege, Hassan. Thank you so much for asking that. So Chetar is kind of a testimony to her brilliance, really, because what she does is, so as you know, Chaitra is the first month of the Hindu calendar, and then Chaitra is when women dress up and they put kajal and bindi, and like how Anju was saying about the jhula and the chutiya and the colors, and it's right around Holi. So, a lot of the colors and everything. And as you know, she was ostracized by men, by women. And then at a certain point, when she arrived at a certain level in her life, she was accepted in a certain sense. So she calls this Chaitar, like the Chaitra ka Mahina, and Chaiti is also a form of song that folks sing around Holi. So the funny thing is she calls it a vyapar. She calls it like, okay, I'm getting all this acceptance, but at what cost, right? What did I have to give for this, right? So she says, जो हंसती थी दुनिया वो आज मुझसे चुटकी मांग. So how she tries to put in the shringar, nature, and her life story in just one piece. That's the beauty, and with such brevity. So and Chaiti, the songs are also about birha, around dancer, and then like Reena was saying she was spiritual. So, in spirituality, the Okhal Musal Kabir has talked about it, Nipat Niranjan has talked about, so that your Maya is in the middle. Humans are in the middle, and there's the spirituality. So it's like you're suppressed from both ends. So she says ki Okhal Musal Zindagi ka maine surma pisa. Like the dard or jo uska, that coal that I pisa in dono ke beech mein, pyar, Maya, jo bhi kuch. And raat ko, ab आकाश अंबर मुझसे उसका काजल, जो उसकी सिलाई की सुरमा की जो सिलाई होती है, उसका काजल मुझसे मांगने आती है. And then she says, आँखों के अंदर जो पानी घोले, she went through a lot of personal pain and all of that stuff. And दो आँखों के पानी अंदर कल हमने जो सपने घोले. So, like again, the paintbrush and the colors and all of that. And the earth today has come to me to ask for those colors, फूल के पत्तों के, जो भी आप समझे, ये धरती आज मेरे आंगन चुन्नी रंगने आई है. और उस जमाने में रंगों में घोलते थे डुबोकर चुन्नियाँ और आंगन में सुखाया करते थे. So that imagery and calling it Chaitar just to say her pain and word and had connection to nature and the universe, just absolutely amazing. Does that say how I feel about this?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I told Reena like 2 weeks ago that I'm going to make her do this, and I just had to. It was beautiful. Next, we have Shikha Dalmia. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
So let me first second what everybody has been saying about a really, truly wonderful experience. Thank you, all of you. I know it's not easy to pull a better like this off on this format and this technology. You know, it's not just about the translations, it's also about creating a certain mood. And so everything has to go flawlessly. So I really appreciate that. You know, I'm very old friends with Anurag and Reena, so I will send them some more personal kudos later on. But I have a question for Anurag. So, you know, I mean, just sort of listening to the translation in 3 languages was really quite an experience and very interesting. And it occurred to me that, you know, not only is it difficult to translate sort of the cultural setting, the sights, the sounds, the smells of one culture into another, which doesn't have the same context, but, you know, given that I'm married to a non-Indian, it's all very often occurred to me that, you know, not only does language shape your world, it actually shapes your feeling. I mean, there are some feelings you can only feel in one language, not in another language, because the emotional words, there are just no words for those emotions. So given that, Anurag, what was the hardest poem for you to translate into English? Hindi and Gurumukhi, Punjabi obviously share a whole lot of feelings. But English is tricky. English is tricky, right? And I was thinking Majboor may have been easy because, you know, sort of patriarchy, oppression, and all of that is easy to translate into every language. But which was the hardest poem for you to translate into English?
Yeah. First of all, Shikha, very dear friend of ours, thank you so much. I've known her for a long time, so thank you for listening in. And so here's Robert Frost once said that poetry is what gets lost in the translation, right? So obviously, I am very, very acutely aware of the limitations of any attempt to translate, even in Hindi, right? And while people think that Punjabi to Hindi or Punjabi to Urdu is relatively a modest leap, and yes, it is, because the cultural milieu is the same, but still the choice of words, you can easily lose the flavor. So point number 1, yes. When you get to English, you truly are in the open sea, because there is no, you cannot literally transliterate and try to have the meters and rhymes, etc. So in a certain way, I don't consider those to be true translations as much as me channeling what I felt when I heard the original Punjabi. So I think the standard is quite different when you are making that leap. And I'll be the first one to say that there are some of her hardest poems. In fact, there are some poems that I will never attempt in English because they are untranslatable in English. Right? Her magnum opus, which is called, Sunhede Messages, for which she got the first Sahitya Akademi Award in '55, is a 38 stanza poem, which I have attempted in Hindi at best, with limited success. And in English, I don't even know where to begin. And because it is so metaphorical, it is so spiritual, and the imagery that needs to be evoked, even in Hindi, you start losing kind of the imagery. And by the time you get to English, you're like, it's garbled. So I actually don't have any answer for you to say whether there is a quick fix over here. All I can say is that there are some poems in English which I have piloted and tested with English speakers who don't understand either Hindi or Punjabi. And my test is, do they get a taste of that, what I'm trying to get to, if they are not a native speaker at all in Punjabi or Hindi? So that's why Vijay Rajan's workshop was exceptionally helpful for me, because many of the people over there were English speaking only. And they helped me workshop some of the English poems like Rabji, which was a spiritual poem around Mannat Mangna, etc. but the English translation of that had to cross over somehow without using that language of Mannat, etc., etc. And there are other poems that I did not get a chance to share, but they are translated in my blog, which are in English. And in English, the task is almost impossible. But I agree with what Ajit Singh ji, my mentor in translations, and many other people have said. ये सिर्फ fragrance है, ये स्वाद नहीं है. Hopefully that was not a satisfying answer. That's the best.
No, it was a very good answer. Yeah, thank you. I'm just thinking.
Thank
My
you.
mother wants to say something, by the way. Anurag, she is also listening. She
अनुराग टुप्पी मारन वास्ते बहुत डूंगे उतरना पड़ता है वो इन्हें किथों समझ आएगी
Yeah, she is always.
आंटी जी अन्य डूंगे उतरे तो डूबी जाएगी ऐसी. Anyway, thank you. What other questions are there?
Thank you, Shikha. We still have 6 more questions, and we want to get to all of them. So the next person whose hand is raised is Mr. Ajit Singh. I actually see your hand raised again. So was there anything else you wanted to ask or say?
वो कहते डूंगा नहीं काफी डूंगा जाना पैदा अगर पोएम में समझ ना होते एक बार ही नहीं कई चुमियां लानी पैनियां ने. That's all.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much. We're glad you liked it. Next, we have this name on Zoom is Ravi's iPhone. So Ravi, if you would like to unmute yourself and turn your camera on.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay. You can see me?
Yes. Oh, hi, Ravi ji. Hi, how are you?
Yeah. So to start with, I must say, Anurag, well done putting it together. Some of my old memories got revived. And Reena, as always, has been poetess herself, the way she narrates, the way she did the job, and everyone acted so well. And it was literally touching the heart. And I know the atrocities committed on the girls of that time during a partition, because I have been personal witness to those atrocities, and I had narrated the partition. Some of you have heard me the total narration of the partition, my personal experiences. And they were really, I saw the girls and women jumping into the well, burning themselves, saving their honor. And that was, that memories came back to me. And the way you did the job, well done. And well done, Hassan, for your hosting it beautifully. Thank you very much, everyone, for doing what you have done. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Raviji. Thank you for watching. Next on the list, we have Radha Basu. If you would like to unmute your mic and camera. Okay, then we can go on to the next one.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yes, hi. So I wanted to just say that this was a very moving and really special event in this very chaotic time. Majboor is haunting, touched me deeply, and I will never forget the words. I can only express deep gratitude to all of you for bringing the beauty of Amrita Pritam's words to a Tamilian who speaks no Punjabi and very little Hindi. Thank you sincerely, Anurag and Reena, especially for inviting me. And this is something I will carry, we will carry, a Bengali and a Tamilian will carry for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Radha. Radha and Deepak are dear family friends, personal friends. Thank you so much. And it means a lot that despite not understanding the native languages, you were able to take a flavor of this away. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha.
Yeah.
Next, we have our Urdu instructor, Vajiha Saqib. I see your hand is raised, so we would love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I think that was beautiful. I mean, I was really, I enjoyed it immensely. It's like really early morning here in Pakistan, and I woke up just to see this, and I was really happy. Especially when I saw Anureet speak that Punjabi, I was envying because Punjabi is my mother tongue. But unfortunately, in this part of Pakistan, unfortunately, the Punjabi families have adopted Urdu as their first language, and we don't know Punjabi that well. And I feel like that a lot of literature is lost to us, and not only literature. It's like there's a lot of culture that you lose in the process as well. And when I saw Anureet recited with such um, impeccable Punjabi, I was like, this is the kind of Punjabi that we should be learning. So I would just, I mean, just a thought out there, since they're all like-minded people here. Is this something, just to encourage the youth of South Asia, especially people who belong to a Punjabi ancestry, to revive and learn Punjabi again? Are there any kind of workshops or classes that we can hold, that you guys can hold, and and we can get people to enroll in them, so that it's easier for everyone to, because I think it is beautiful. I've read some of Amrita Pritam's short stories, but not her poetry, and this was amazing for me. This was just amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Tina, for such beautiful comments. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And to carry forward, we really need to teach our younger generation Punjabi and Gurmukhi. So, the best way, like in US here, a lot of Gurmukhi classes happens in Gurdwaras. So maybe probably, I mean, if I'll be happy to do that, if we can, arrange some groups, and I'll be happy to participate in that and, teach younger generation about Punjabi. That would be great. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Thank you. Anureet, I was telling my dad today that I think my Punjabi has improved 10x thanks to you in the past month. So that was also really nice. Thank you for that. The next hand we have raised is Lalita. Lalita, if you would like to unmute yourself, we would love to hear from you.
Hi, I didn't have any questions, but really wanted to congratulate Reena, Anurag, Hassan, Kohinoor, Anureet. You guys did a fabulous job. And as a follow-up to the story about which Anurag related, where he met Amrita Pritam, I can see her actually up, right here, and she is actually smiling that now, like she refused that, Anurag really didn't know. And so now she's actually smiling and applauding all that Anurag has done. And here's an applause from me as well.
Thank you, Lalita. Thank you
for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lalita.
Thank you.
We have one more hand, or two more hands that are raised. The first is Varsala. Varsala, if you would like to unmute yourself and say something. There we go.
Hi, hi Hassan, fantastic show. I can't describe in mere words and my limited vocabulary as to how amazing of an experience this was. Every bit of it was so magical. It's apparent that it's a portrayal of how passionate Anurag is about Amrita Pritam, and how much love you all had while executing this and presenting it to us. The good thing now is I know that Amrita Pritam also resides in my house, because she said that wherever there is a free-spirited person, I reside over there. So that's what I'll take from you. Great job, guys. Kudos.
Thank you. Thank you, Varsala. That's a really nice thought. Next, we have Namrita Johanna. Namrita, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hi. Thank you so much, and thank you for this wonderful treat. It was hi Kohinoor, Reena, Anureet, and it was so wonderful to hear all of them. Anurag especially working for 10 years on a woman writer. So kudos to you, because we do have very few, women writers to read. And what I read was that they weren't allowed to, there were not too many people who read them, and they would change their names to male writers so that people could read them. So this is a wonderful treat. And I read a little bit of poetry, and I know it's a very personal experience for everybody. And, you know, poetry leaves you with a sense of warmth and heartache at the same time. That's what I feel. So I'd love to know from the women, what appealed to you all the most about Amrita's writings, or maybe her life, because that was also, you know, something to look up to. So thank you so much.
I can go first, Namrata. This was 80 years ago. Like, how long back did she write? And today, in this day and time, it still rings true. So to your point, it's painful that not much has changed. And then it is also a thing of joy that she at that time fought for what she thought was the right, for rights of women, for all of the things that were unfairly done for women, and her writing about it. She didn't care what the world thought. She didn't care how. She was true to herself, always true to her feelings, her emotions, her view of what is the right thing and what's wrong. And she didn't care about what people thought. She took her own path, and I love that about her. So inspiring. So I'm sorry, anybody else who wants to go, I'll mute myself.
I have something similar to say as what Kohinoor said, Namrata. I think to me, her appeal, and I actually discovered her in college as well. To me, her appeal was just the beauty of the words and the metaphors. I mean, this was mentioned earlier, ek tuk yaad teri is tarah, jo ek tota tupda, matlab the ek tukda dhoop ka, the beauty. If you've ever been in love, you know what that means. Ki teri yaad aisi hai jaise ek tukda dhoop ka, which is missing. So the beauty of it, the love. And of course, she, as a human being, she's completely inspiring. What I really love about her is that she's not out there thumping her chest about some great feminist cause. She's just leading a feminist life. And you know, take it or leave it. She made her own choices. She marched to her own tune, and people criticized her and laughed at her and did all sorts of things. She didn't even answer. I mean, it's funny in contrast, because you look at Bollywood now, and every feminist in Bollywood is busy answering all her critics. She just doesn't care. She just lives her life. She's married to a man, and she declares her love for another man, and she just carries right on. And then her life partner is this guy who's 6 or 7 years her junior. She lived, and there is no doubt that she has a purity of spirit, which is not bound by social norms, but there is a purity to it that you just can't deny, because it comes through in her words and her poetry, in her life. She's not doing it for any great banner, but I think the best way to be a feminist is to lead that life yourself, lead by example. So that is very appealing to me. And I love that line ki, jahan swatantra ruh mile, wahi mera ghar hai. That's it.
I also echo with both of you, Kohinoor and Reena, that the depth of words again is remarkable. Once I was when I was in college, I once read her couplet. It was in Times of India newspaper, very popular newspaper there, and then it said that changa hoya tu gair ho gayo tenu paun di chinta muk gayi. That was something that really touched me, and I was like, oh my God, I want to read more about her. And so the depth, and she used to use different words, but it was very concise, very precise, and very, very deep, very, very deep meaning to it. So that really made me attracted more towards her.
Okay. Thank you so much. Wonderful answers. Thanks.
Thank you, Namrita. We have 3 more hands. I'm going to say the names out loud because they've been very, very patient. They'll know the order. So first we have Dev Shah, then we have Sukhpreet, and then we have Shai Bhattacharya. Thank you so much for your patience. And Dave, if you would like to unmute yourself and speak first.
Thank you, Hassan. You guys can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
As I've said several times before, you guys are my new Sunday evening normal. I have attended almost all of your events and very proud of it. Before I go deeper into what I learned from today's experience, the poetic evening, I just want to say this on a technical level, this reminded me of a mushaira or a kavi sammelan. They would take place back in the days in Doordarshan. It was technically that great. So thank you. I am one of the co-students with Reena ji and Anurag ji. They're older to me, so respect with ji. And I when somebody said that how can you translate language Punjabi into English, every language has its own features which are not translatable, easily translated. So I did attend a couple of those classes where Anurag ji, he was say it in English, and this brought a complete new dimension to it. I also want to say a few 7-8 years ago when I started pursuing acting more seriously, I started reading Ismat Chutai and then Sadat Hasan Manto, and today this poet I do not know much about, to be quite honest, but when I hear them, listen to them, it's beyond literature. It brings me a glimpse of the culture back in those days where I wasn't even born, and it takes me to time how they were ahead of the society from back in those days. And so it gives me, I don't want to ask a question for the sake of it, but I just want to say what I learned from this. You know how you learn here from history and geography, you also learn from culture and language. This is a true experience of that. And yeah, so that was a very meaningful evening in that sense to me, and it also brings me a complete new dimension to my pursuit as I'm pursuing more better to be a better actor. This teaches me a lot more when I have to perform in any of those say Sadat and Manto's play. So thank you again. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. I feel guilty now. Maybe I should also call you guys Anurag ji and Reena ji. Next in line, we have Sukhpreet. Sukhpreet, if you can please unmute yourself and say what you would like to say. So while we're waiting for Sukhpreet, maybe we can move on to Shai.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Sukhpreet. We can hear you.
I think the video is not coming through. I don't know.
Hi,
Sukhpreet.
We can hear you, Sukhpreet.
Yeah, I don't have any question as such, but I would like to thank Reena and Anurag, Kohinoor, Anureet, Hassan. Very, very, very well organized. I enjoyed in Hyderabad, India, and listening to this literary work, keeping it alive and to bringing it to new generation. Amrita Pritam, very good, very good. I'm so happy, and I really enjoyed this nostalgic journey of Amrita Pritam, and thank you for sending. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sukhpreet. Thank you for coming. Sukhpreet was my 10th grade best friend who I haven't seen since then. And my 10th grade.
Yeah, me too. I'm seeing after a long time, but following all your works and all. Yeah, really, really.
Thank
great
you so
connecting.
much.
Yeah.
Lots of love.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for waking up for this. Lastly, we have Shai Bhattacharya, who has their hand raised. So Shai Bhattacharya, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hey, everybody. Firstly, fabulous job. I've attended lots of poetry programs. I have done some poetry programs with some close friends also in the past, and wanted to make sure that you guys realize you guys did an absolutely fabulous job. Full disclosure, I do know Kohinoor quite well, more so as a singer and a performer on stage, but also as someone who has done MC'd a lot of different programs and also writes herself. Having said that, though, I have a couple of questions to see sort of, to learn a little bit more about everybody else and sort of a response from you guys. Firstly, do any of you write and yourselves? And have you ever shared that with anybody? How have you felt reading Amritaji's poems or even other very deep, profound writers from that era and from that time, how do they influence your writing and your thinking about poetry and how you think about capturing the essence of something the way Amrita ji does or somebody else does? The second question, congratulations to all of you again. Cloud Playhouse, great job organizing this. Do you have other programs coming up? How do you think about picking programs? Do you only do poetry and poetry related programs? Can you talk a little bit about that so we can learn a little bit more about how we can follow what you guys do and sort of what you bring forward in the future?
I'll answer the second question first. So at Cloud Playhouse, we put on about 2 to 3 events every Sunday. 2 to 3 Sundays a month. If you subscribe to our website, which is cloudplayhouse.com, or you can find us on Facebook as well, we actually do not do just poetry events. We do script readings, play readings. We've had events that we call experimental. We once, we had this documentary about dancing hands from these artists who are in an ashram in Bangalore. So lots of different kinds of things with South Asian culture and the arts. And so, yeah, that's more about us at Cloud Playhouse. I will now let the other 4 answer Shai's first question.
Just so you know, Shai is my Americanized name. My Indianized name, if you will, is Shatayu, which is very easy to pronounce, as you can imagine.
He's my brother, so he's already biased towards all of us.
You should start the answer.
Yeah, so Shatayu does all of our sounds for all the programs we do. He's really, if he's saying that this was technologically very good, that I would take as a huge compliment. And all of it goes to Hassan for doing such a beautiful job of managing technology and being such a super, director with all of the details and everything he put in. And to Anurag, of course, thank you for giving this opportunity. I'm just so grateful.
Thank you.
Oh, as I even forget what his question was. It was a long question.
About writing, do any of you write? And I guess particularly Anurag ji, after 10 years of doing this,
I have a very short answer to that. I do write. I maintain a sporadic personal blog called Tossing Pebbles in the Pond, and over there, off and on, I write. And writing to me is not something other than a pleasure. And as and when the spirit moves me, I write, usually a combination of short poems or some other long forms as well. And there is obviously one is shaped and influenced by all the writers one has experienced. I believe in the power of mashup of all the influences I have experienced over my life. So Amrita is obviously one of them, not the only one. So the short answer is yes, we channel all the good spirits that we encounter.
If you're open to it, would you be willing to please share the link to your blog? If it's an open blog, I'm not sure if it is an open blog.
If you go to Kissing Fire, which is a blog, which
yeah.
Through that, you will see 3 or 4 of my blogs. They're all cross-linked.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
So Shai, Reena also writes, as you know, why, but I haven't, I look forward to Reena and Anurag sharing their poems with me. I would really love to hear your poems someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Would be happy to share my blog with you, Shai, and with Kohinoor. I guess I can give it to Kohinoor and she can get it to you.
Wonderful.
No, but I write more scientific writings because I work on cancer and cardiovascular diseases. So I have
Wonderful.
Published book chapters and on more, on that side, but I think I'll start writing poetry as well. I'm so much into it because practicing and all those things. I think I'll start writing poetry very soon.
You should. You read very well. So I hope the poetry will be as good as well. I imagine it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually wanted to add to that, and it'll segue very well into the next hand that we have. So while we were practicing for this for the past month, Reena and I are actually in an Urdu literature class that meets every Saturday morning with Jiha Saqib, who's on the screen right now. And we were reading a lot of other authors, part of the progressive writers movement, including Manto and Isma Chuktai. And one of the questions that I constantly have when I read these writers who are absolutely phenomenal is, how are they so well able to write about experiences or people, so about experiences they've never maybe experienced themselves firsthand, or people who maybe don't come from the same world or background than they do. That's probably not super relevant to Amrita Pritam, but we were reading an Isma Chughtai story a couple of weeks ago, and that question came to my mind because the story was so moving, and at least to us, it felt very, very authentic. So I'm constantly thinking of that. Like, I know that's something a lot of people discuss, especially nowadays, like how authentic is this story? How authentic is the storytelling? So I'm always trying to differentiate between the authentic storytelling and what the characteristics are there versus what makes it not authentic. And like I said, that segues very well into our next hand, which is Wajiha Saqib. So Wajiha, please do share what you would like to say.
So I basically, Reena talked about Amrita Pritam being a feminist by example, not by, koi narabazi nahi hai. There's no slogans that she's using, and she's not going out and protesting. But what she's doing is she's leading a life by practicing all those things. One of these things that I've witnessed in other female poets of South Asia as well. One of the other names that comes into mind is of Parveen Shakir. I feel Amrita was more bold. I would say Parveen Shakir was not that bold, but the fact that Amrita Pritam was unapologetic about her love for Sahil Ludhianvi, and the fact that Parveen Shakir was also unapologetic about her love for he was a poet or a known person, but for this man, it was reciprocated, but they couldn't be together, right? So this being unapologetic, I call it, some sort of a Eastern feminism, because I don't see it in Western feminism. When I see Western feminism, I feel like, it's all about having that self-respect, having that ego, all those terms, you use those to say, well, if he is not with me, why should I, actually even be talking about it? But I think women like Amrita Pritam and Parveen Shakir, they own that love. And somewhere they say that this is our love, and it's our own. We can represent it the way we want to represent it, right? And even if the other person has reciprocated or not reciprocated, we could be with him or not, is another story. But it is ours to share with the world or to express. And that, I think, is the beauty of. I see a different kind of feminism there, which I think can only exist in the East, because I feel, especially in South Asia, where we believe that loving a human being, as Reena said, loving a human being is the pathway to loving God. So I think it could only come from a tradition that is very South Asian. That's just my thought on that. And Reena made me think about that, that Amrita Pritam had the same kind of idea that Parveen Shakir had, and I wanted to share that with you guys.
अब वजिया जी मुझे क्लास में A मिल जाएगा ना?
I also want an A in this class.
Sure. No worries.
Thank you. I think on that note, that leaves us all with a lot of food for thought for starting the next week of ours. So thank you so much to everyone who joined for us tonight. We will end our evening on that note. Yes, Reena.
I would just like to take this moment to acknowledge all the hard work that Hassan put into this. His attention to detail was like beyond anything I've ever seen. He was just phenomenal. And I'm so grateful to be here and to read her work and see Anurag's work come to light. But we couldn't have done it without Hassan's amazing, amazing hard work. He worked harder than all of us.
Thank you so much. You're completely correct. Thank you, Hassan, for your fearless leadership and guidance.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. So yes, on that note, we are going to end the evening. Please feel free to email us at info@cloudplayhouse.com if you have any questions. And we can always lead your questions to wherever they need to go. But on that note, we are going to end the evening. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. If the readers and Anurag can please stay back, and then we will now bid farewell to everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
At this point, readers, please do take a look at the chat window. There's lots of nice messages in there for all of you.
Yeah, I'm reading some of them.